Hey, this is the PRELAB video for magnetic fields and magnetic forces, and we'll be studying various magnetic effects in this experiment. The first effect that you'll be studying is the magnetic field created by current carrying wire. And so the object that we'll be investigating is a coil of wire here. We actually have two coils of wire set up for you, and they're mounted on this frame. And the first part of the experiment, you'll only be using one of the coils. And so you'll be asked to set up the electrical connections to the power supply to get that running. And the way that this coil is connected to the power supply are through these connectors that are located in the back. You'll easily be able to see them. And this banana connector from the power supply will connect easily into the socket. The other part of this apparatus is it's a bit complicated, but the idea of the central part is it's going to be a support guide for a magnetic field probe that you're going to use. So this is the magnetic field probe. This is a device which is based on the Hall effect. It measures the magnitude of the magnetic field perpendicular to this direction. So it measures the axial magnetic field. It measures the field along the axis of this device. And it sort of comfortably sits on this guide, and it can slide along back and forth. So we're going to be measuring the magnetic field as a function of position. So this will sit at some position, we'll take a measurement, and then we'll just keep moving this and take measurements at different locations. To change where this guide is located with respect to the coil, we can adjust these two thumb screws located right here. And so these screws just sort of easily get loosened, and now this guide can slide back and forth. So from your point of view, it's sliding in and out. And so when it's, you'll notice that there's an indication on the top here which shows when the guide is set up so that it's perfectly centered on the axis of the coils. So when the little arrow on this slide matches up with the mark on here, which is right near the 80 centimeters mark, that means that the magnetic probe guide is coaxial with these coils. And so that's sort of the central first position that you're going to be recording. But then we're going to want to record the magnetic field as a function of position off axis. And to do that, we would just slide this to a different position. And so you'll easily be able to tell when you're 1 centimeter off axis, 2 centimeters off axis, and so on. And then you would just lock it in position with the thumb screws, and then put the magnetic probe back on and take your new set of data. The second part of so one person will have the equipment attached to their laptop, and they'll be the ones sort of the data control computer, and they'll be setting the power supply and reading the magnetic field sensor. The other students will have the data collection computer, we'll call it, and they'll be recording the data in a pre-formatted table in Excel. That'll make it kind of easy to visualize these results that you're going to be getting. So the first part, you'll be working with just one coil. In the second part of the experiment, you'll be working with the second coil as well, and it will be at various distances from the first coil. So to adjust its position, you would, again, there's thumb screws attaching it. You'd unscrew them, and then we can slide this over as we wish. So it just slides over, and then retighten the thumb screws when when you have the correct spacing between these coils. When you're considering the spacing between the coils, what you really should be considering is the distance from the center of this coil to the center of this coil. So not from the inner edge to inner edge or outer edge to outer edge, but wherever you can judge the center to be to the center. So when they're in a particular configuration, when the spacing between these coils is exactly equal to 1 radius, it's a special configuration called Helmholtz configuration. And in that configuration, the magnetic field is kind of well known and has very nice properties in the central region between the two coils. At that point, what we want to do for the third part of the experiment is try and measure the force on a current carrying wire immersed in a magnetic field. And so to create a nice uniform magnetic field, we're going to use these coils in the Helmholtz configuration, where their spacing is equal to 1 radius. And the coil that we're going to sit inside is this coil here, which is wrapped with some number of turns of wires, and it's going to be your job to figure out how many turns of wires are wrapped on here by trying to measure the magnetic force on this guy. So the idea will be you'll have to remove the magnetic probe guide because it's no longer needed. You'll adjust the scale so it's centered properly, and then you'll gently place the coil onto the scale. And the height should already be very well adjusted, so the top row on the rectangular coil is perfectly in line with the central axis of the Helmholtz coil, so it's in the nice uniform magnetic field. So the idea is you'll be putting this coil in a known magnetic field, and you'll pass current through this coil, and you'll see its apparent weight change by measuring on the scale, and that will tell you something about the magnetic force, and thereby telling you something about how many turns must be, or how many windings must be on this coil. So I wish you good luck in this experiment, and I hope you enjoy it.